Hello, class. Today is Monday, October 5th, and this is Latin 101. I'm Professor Barbara Wyman, and we are going to begin Chapter 2 today in the Orange Book, Latin via Ovid. And this will be the way we will do each new chapter. I'll give a lecture, I'll leave you to look at it, and then give a little assignment. We'll see how that works for this chapter. So the name of this is Europa et Taurus, Europa and the bull, and this will be an Ovid myth. And this is one of the famous myths from the author of Ovid. It's a good story. You can read about it in English on the left side, and that'll give you a little bit of the background. But before we start looking at the translation, I am going to look at the word list, the vocab list with you. And this is what we would do if we were in class as well. And then you would have a vocabulary quiz. But obviously we can't do that right now. So we'll just go over the vocabulary list like this, and you all can read over it on your own. So this is page 12. And the vocabulary list always has the words in this order: the nouns first, then the verbs, then the adjectives, and then the so-called other words. The other words are just the little words. There's one I see right there, olim, which means once or once upon a time. But all the other ones are self-explanatory. So let's look at the nouns first. Our first noun is amica, and you can see that the meaning is friend, female. And we've learned about first declension, nouns that end in A, and in this chapter we'll find out that the A declension, nouns ending in A, is the feminine declension. Latin has gender in its nouns. They're going to have feminine and also masculine, and we'll be able to tell the gender or part of the nouns by the ending. So you don't need to worry about that too much right now, just the idea is being introduced. So amica, ending in A, is a friend who's female. Amicus, ending in US, is a friend who's masculine. Later on we'll have different ones like filia is a daughter, ends in A, and filius is a brother, a son, ending in US. So amica, amicus. Here is deus, which means a god. These are the mythological gods, and we'll find out that of course, in mythology, there's also dea for female goddesses. Right here is deus, and this is going to be the god Zeus in this story, or Jupiter. Here's philia, means daughter, and ends in A. Jupiter is the god Zeus in Greek, so king of the gods and men, so that's Jupiter. Ovidius is Ovid, the author, the poet, the author of this book, Ovidius. Poeta is poet, ends in A, it's a feminine first declension. Rex means king. Rex is actually a third declension, and we're not going to learn that for a while, but you'll just need to know this form of it, which is the nominative. So Rex means king. Someone's mowing outside, sorry. Taurus means bull, and it ends in US, so we know that that's going to be the masculine gender, Taurus. So remember, waka for cow ended in A, and Taurus ending in US is bull. And this is Taurus, this is the city of Tyre. Okay, so here's the verbs. Amat, and up until this point, they're only giving you one form, the T form, which means he, she, or it. And I'll go over that a little bit more as an example. But so right now, this is Amat loves or likes. he, she, or it loves or likes. Desiderat, he, she, or it desires. Fugitat, he, she, or it flees. This is where we get the English word fugitive. Ludit, he, she, or it plays. Narat, he, she, or it tells. Of course, that's where we get the English word narrate. Portat, he, she, or it carries. So if something is portable, you can carry it. Spectat, he, she, or it watches. That's where we get the word spectator. And transformat, he, she, or it transforms or changes. Okay, that makes sense. Our adjectives modify verbs. We have novus and nova. The V is pronounced like a W. So the novus is an adjective, and we'll find out in Latin that if it's a masculine noun, the adjective will also have a masculine ending. Timidus, timida. So it would be a timida puella, but a timidus taurus. Don't have to worry about that too much right now, just introducing that concept. Phoenicius, Phoenicia, Phoenician, or of Phoenicia. Tyrius, or Tyria, a Tyrian, like if you're a Tyrian, if you had Puella Tyria, you're a Tyrian Puella, maiden from Tyre. Here's the other words. The word odd, followed by a noun with an accusative endings, means motion toward. So odd, if we want to say odd, well, we don't have a good word up there, but that'll be in the translation. We'll talk about this. This is the little word odd plus accusative. You learn those together. Cum plus ablative, a noun in the ablative case. It means with. De plus a noun in the ablative case. It means about or concerning. Du, for a long time. Nunc means now. Olim means once upon a time. Quis means who. And se means himself. It's a pronoun in the objective case, himself. He loves himself. That would be se. Okay, so moving on to the next page, this is when we're going to get the grammar. We found out in chapter 1 that Latin does not use the pronoun with a verb. In other words, if you see amat, that verb all by itself means he, she, or it loves. There's no separate word for he. The ending, t, means he, she, or it. And I'll go over that again on my examples. Well, likewise, Latin is very compact. So, omission of a possessive adjective. That means if it's understood by the sentence, then Latin won't use a separate word for his, her, or its. So in the Latin, it won't be listed because if it's understood, it's not needed, but you can put it in when you translate. So this one says, Agenor est rex Phoenicius et Europa est filia. Well, it's obvious that this is going to be his daughter, so it's not included. The word his isn't included here. Agenor is the king, is the Phoenician king, and Europa is daughter. That's all the Latin has. So if you're translating that, you could write Europa is his daughter. If you want to, you don't have to. But the word his is not included in the Latin. So that's the omission of the possessive adjective. Word order and a transitive sentence. We actually did go over this a little bit in class that one week. And this is the thing about Latin that people who are first learning it sometimes have a hard time grasping, but it's really kind of cool. And that is that the word order is very flexible because you tell if something is a subject or a direct object by what its ending is. So AM, if you remember your list of endings, AM is the direct object. So this is the subject, the God, he loves Europa. Okay. So that's one word order, but it's more flexible. So Norma is showing a different order. Europam, Deus amat. AM is still the direct object. So if the words are in this order, it doesn't change the meaning. It still is God loves Europa, no matter where it falls. Amat Deus Europam. This is still the direct object. The God, he loves Europa. And so it's not driven by the order of the words, but by the ending. So you all can read over this. And I'm going to give you another example in a minute on my board. Then the verb. Latin verbs have tenses. And so we've just been learning the simple present. The simple present. The book gives several other aspects of the verb, but for this class, all you have to know is the simple present. And that is, the poet tells a story. That's the simple present. The poet is telling and the poet does tell are possible translations for the present tense, but for the sake of simplifying what you need to know, we're just going to learn the meaning of the simple present. So this is the poet, he tells a story. The bull, it carries the maiden, just present tense. Okay, so flip the page. Okay, so here is the verb, person and number. We learned a little bit about this on the first few classes, but the ending of the verb gives whether it's singular or plural in first, second, or third person. So let me go over to my board that I made for the class. Remember, we learned that the pronoun idea in Latin, verb simple present, OST, mus, tis, enti, hooked to the stem. So the ending, that means I, this means you, this means he, she, or it. Mus means we, tis means y'all, and enti means they. And these are hooked to the end of the verb. So naro means I tell. Naras means you, singular, tell. Narat means he, she, or it tells. So there's no separate pronoun because you get the person from the ending. So nara moose, the moose means we tell. Nara tis means y'all tell. Narant means they tell. So we memorize the endings OST, moose, tis, enti. That gives first, second, or third, singular or plural for the verbs. Okay, so let's go back to the book. Or over here. So that's what is being shown on page 14. So on this book, I've marked out the other aspects because you don't really need to know this. It's mainly translated as simple present. He, she, or it loves. He, she, or it carries. He, she, or it rules. He, she, or it is. He, she, or it plays. Enti, T goes to enti, means they. They love, they carry, they rule, they are, they play. Okay, so you can read over that. This chapter 2, also introduces the genitive ending. Remember, we got all the case endings. I had y'all have that list and find my paper. Remember all the endings, and we had nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. And I said we were going to omit genitive and dative on chapter 1. Well, in chapter 2, we're introduced to the genitive. So it's nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. Nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. Genitive is the second one. Genitive is a little tricky at first because it's a noun that shows possession or has possession. In English, we would use an apostrophe. Okay, we would have an apostrophe for the possession, but in Latin, it's a separate ending. So right here, amica Europae, the friend of Europa. Europa's friend is timid. And so that's a little confusing. It's two nouns set side by side, and the second one has the genitive ending. So that's nominative, genitive. Here's amicae, that's nominative plural, the friends of the poet. So that's the genitive ending. The friends of the poet, they love the stories. So you'll have to look at your endings because the genitive is AE, but so is the nominative plural. So that can be a little bit confusing, but once you get used to the idea, you can tell by the context. Because if a subject is singular, then the verb will be singular. The subject is plural, the verb will be plural. But the genitive is a noun that's showing possession, and it won't have a verb, it'll be next to another noun, like that. Okay, so you might want to read over this in the book. This shows the plural form. Well, where's my pen? So, filii, that's the nominative plural. The daughters, plural, of the friends possession, are timid. The daughters are timid. The daughters of the friends are timid. The poet is the woman, Sappho. The poet of the islands, poeta insularum. Arum is the genitive plural. The poets of the island, the poet of the island is the woman Sappho. Okay, so Norma is introducing what we already talked about in the word list, that some nouns end in US. Okay, the nouns that end in US are masculine. And for this translation, since Taurus is in the story, we had to learn that Taurus with the US is masculine. And we'll also need to know that with the nouns ending in US, there's also the accusative, which will end in the UM on second declension nouns. So we're just going to learn that little bit. The masculine singular, the accusative singular, and the ablative singular. So please read over this in the book. So Taurus novus, the adjective matches. The strange bull is Jupiter. Taurus novus est Jupiter. Okay. Bull strange is Jupiter. The maiden, she looks at the bull, accusative, strange, so the adjective matches. The maiden, she looks at or watches the bull strange, the direct object. The maiden looks at the strange bull. He, sure, it, we know it's she because we're talking about the maiden. She plays cum tauro. She plays with the bull. So since with is a preposition, tauro is the ablative ending. So these are nouns ending in US. And that's all we need to know for those, because we're really mostly focusing on first declension nouns in A. Okay, this is another kind of tricky thing, but not too much. We've learned that the ablative follows a preposition. Usually, there's some times when the preposition in is followed by a noun in the accusative case, and that shows motion into. Okay, so we're just not going to worry about that too much. It's introduced in this chapter. It's something we'll talk about several times, but if the preposition in is followed by a noun in the accusative instead of the ablative, it means motion into. So the way that would work is Taurus, the bull, he carries the maiden into the new land. So that's motion into the new land, okay? The bull, he shear it, carries the maiden into the new land. Okay, we're going to skip that thing that says historical present. Okay, and now I'm going to post this explanation before I start working on the translation. But usually what we would do next is that I would assign you a portion of the translation for you all to do for homework. But what I'm going to do instead right now is I'm going to post this lecture that gives the explanation and let you go over it. And then I'll do a different lecture and get started on the translation. And that way you can look at it a little bit first. But what that means is that when we do the translation, that means that we'll write out the Latin and try to figure out what it means in English. So what we have to do is look for verbs and noun endings. For example, if we see one that has the macron following a preposition, we'll know that's ablative. And we're also going to have to be looking for our genitive, and especially our accusative case. So here's an accusative case, here's another accusative case, because that will be the direct object. So for example, amikai Europai puelam amant. The friends, nominative plural, they love who? The one with the direct object ending. They love the maiden. This word that we left out is the genitive because it's listed second. The friends of Europa, they love the maiden. Or you could do it this way. Europa's with an apostrophe for possession. Europa's friends, they love the maiden. Okay, I'm going to post this and then we'll go over the translation a little bit on a different video.